Hey, what's going on? Welcome to Cinema Recap. Thanks for joining us. Today we're going to take a look at that 2021 action sci-fi flick called The Tomorrow War. Spoilers ahead. So we start with Dan, our main character, and other soldiers like him jumping out of the sky with parachutes. You can see it's an apocalyptic setting, so maybe parachutes aren't practical, but we won't get ahead of ourselves. So Paul's taking a phone call as he arrives to the party at his house, calls out for his daughter while some kids dance to music. Now the call's employment related, and Dan is put on hold a while he talks to his wife briefly about her Santa Claus looking cake. Soon he's put back on the line, and the news coming in isn't encouraging because the job's been given to a better qualified man. So Dan's whining to his daughter Muri about life while her mother Emmy looks on. A FIFA World Soccer match is on TV. Suddenly the screen goes crazy and the whole world is watching, including those partying at Dan's house. Can you imagine it? People from the future arrive mid-soccer match to tell everyone that alien life forms have taken over the world in the future and that we need to recruit massively from the present to fight them. And so the world governments rally up their resources, but still they're no match for these ruthless aliens as the casualties pile up. At some point, even regular civilians are compelled to join the war as recruitment messages are sent out randomly for a tour lasting 7 days. But irrespective of that, the world isn't really making any headway and has to start thinking outside the box. It's in this light that Dan returns to his day job after the debacle of seeking employment elsewhere. He's a biology teacher at high school, and his students don't seem very enthusiastic about today's lesson. That's because they believe everyone's going to die sooner or later from these aliens. And right there in the middle of trying to console his students, Dan receives an alert on his phone. Seems he's been drafted. He goes over to the directorate and gets his arm refitted with a tracking device, preventing him from deserting, or else his family could be in trouble. He's also told that according to the future records, he has only 7 more years to live. Now, one of the perks of fighting a future war is knowing exactly when you're gonna die. Bummer. He gets to his wife, who's suggesting that they run anyway. So Dan pays his estranged engineer of a father a visit. The prospect of taking off the arm tracker is almost certain until the bad blood between them gets in the way. So in keeping to his pride, Dan walks away from the chance and now has to relay the disappointing news to his wife, and especially his daughter. Now it's almost time to leave, as the new recruits are assembled at the designated facility. There's an official giving some sort of orientation or pep talk. We see new troops being given basic training on how to kill the aliens, which they've nicknamed White Spikes. And while there, Dan's making friends with Charlie, who's also a professor, and definitely not trained for combat like Dan. And there's also another badass amongst them. It's rumored that he has successfully rotated 3 tours and came back alive. His name is Dorian. He even has a souvenir from his tours, which is an alien toenail that totally looks like a white spike, probably where they got the nickname. Dan and Charlie also observe that the recruits seem to be older compared to their supervisors who are much younger. Apparently it's a paradox thing. The older recruits would be dead by 2051, and the younger supervisors haven't been born yet. Either way, the alarm goes off prematurely, or it's time to go ASAP. They all gather in a hall and there's blue laser lights above them. Technicians apply the switch and they start to get sucked up like it's a rapture of Christians. Soon they land in 2051 from 2022, although there was a malfunction and the landings were mostly rough. They soon get into contact with the Force of the Future, who were already on the ground. They're to execute a CSAR, which is short for Combat Search and Rescue. It's the military-aided evacuation of scientific personnel and experimental samples at a lab situated close by, so they wait till morning before moving in. Now they go in quietly, inching closer and closer to the building. It's a gruesome scene with bodies everywhere. Noticeably, there are spikes everywhere on the walls. They seem to be projectiles from the aliens, and these spikes are apparently so strong that they can pierce through these concrete walls when shot. The rescue squad soon get into the building but are disappointed when they find the bodies of the scientists on display hanging from the roof. So the next best thing to do would be to retrieve the research samples. They're able to achieve this as they rally. They take the stairs with its own unique problems and soon are attacked by these aliens. It's the first time we're seeing them properly close up. They got some tentacles that just so happen to shoot out those strong spikes at their victims. And my oh my, are they big and ugly. On the other side of the comms line, they've been told that the fighter planes are within a few minutes to bomb all these white spikes in the general vicinity to smithereens. So they have to get out to the rendezvous point. Some Humvees are on the way to pick them up. And as they approach that pickup location, a group of white spikes beat them to it and lay the drivers and soldiers to waste. Now the group's on their own, improvising. Well, they know they got to get out of that kill zone before the fighter jets get there. And trust the fat guy to break his ankle. Dan really doesn't want to leave him behind, but is compelled to, and so it's bombs away. Ultimately, it's just Dan, Charlie, and Dorian that come out alive. Dan wakes up in a clinic, and Charlie's in the corner on another bed. They get out of the tent, and it looks like a huge military installation. We got choppers in the air, vehicles on the ground, soldiers milling around. You get the point. Dan and Charlie see Dorian sitting in the corner and approach his position. Dorian's not happy with how things went down, also admitting that he has terminal cancer. No wonder he's such a badass, having completed 3 tours. Also, Charlie's told that he'll be reinserted, and he doesn't look too happy about that. Dan's attention is called for by the commanding officer. When he gets to her, they introduce themselves. Turns out, she's Muri, his daughter. Only she's all grown now, and is a colonel, displaying her rank to a surprised father. Seems anything's possible with the future, except hugging. Dan tries to do it, but Muri's declining. Maybe it's a future paradox thing again. She wants to show him something dangerous. They've been observing a white spike female for some time and want to capture her alive. She's the key to the total extinction and annihilation of the white spikes. So far, Muri's been able to develop a toxin that kills them, but it turns out that it doesn't work on the females of this species of aliens. So they want to study her first, but they have to get her in a cage, and that's not an easy feat. They have some harpoons around her, but she's strong. She tosses the soldiers as they're struggling to pin her. Eventually, Muri's great marksmanship saves the day with a little unsolicited help from Dan. They cart the female white spike away, but Dan and Muri are left stranded somewhat on the ground as they drive away in one Humvee. They soon get to the beach and Muri signals her people. She's still a bit angry about Dan helping. Maybe she has other things on her mind, like the exact way he died, or how he left his family. She basically watched her hero dwindle and die, and look how far she's come with her daddy issues. No, I'm just kidding. They head out to the other badass base, that is the one out at sea like an oil rig, or specifically several oil rigs bounded by a great wall. Awesome. It's the main research facility. The queen alien's dropped off and is soon heavily sedated, so torture in the name of research can be carried out on her. The first thing to do is to collect some blood samples, which is yellow in color. Dan shows up to help as Muri is determined to solve the case of the resistant toxin. The two start talking as she's working. It's going to be a long night, or at least 10,000 fails before they hit the jackpot. Muri tells Dan his part in all of this. He's to take the alien-killing toxin back to 2022, where it can be mass-produced in advance. Right when Muri admits that they're on borrowed time out here in 2051, Dan goes on to make a promise to her. And as they're getting sentimental, the genetic sequencing gets a good hit. Hurrah! Well, they found that magic alien killer, but not so fast. Because right there and then, they're alerted they're under attack from white spikes. Somehow their queen has communicated with them with brainwaves. So it's a race against time to get Dan out of 2051. Those white spikes are swarming the big base like a bunch of locusts, and they make light work of the defenses. The soldiers come out in their numbers to defend the base and make their last stand. The toxin must get back to 2022, just as the next jump link starts counting down, and fortunately, it's only a few minutes away. I told you it was a race against time, literally. The plan's for Dan to make his jump while safe on a helicopter, but the white spikes get to the chopper first. They also manage to free the queen, who then directs her boys to seek out Dan or Muri. Apparently, she knows about those toxins, or just simply wants revenge for being drugged. Dan and Muri sneak themselves closer to an evacuation, but then Muri gets shot by one of those spikes through her liver. Dan's being a bit sentimental and saying he's not going to leave her there to die, but the queen catches up and tries to drag her down into the water below. Dan's tour elapses just then, and wham! He hits the tarmac, back in 2022. The latest news being that the Jump Link Tower has been destroyed in 2051, so no one can go back. In essence, the toxin is more or less useless, so it's over. Dan gets to be picked up by his wife at the airport, but it's his daughter he wants to see. He gets home and she greets him with a welcome sign she drew herself. That night he can't get himself to sleep and instead is sitting beside his daughter's bed when Emmy, his wife, finds him. He tells her about Muri's work in the future and is frustrated that they can't do more to stop the future alien destruction. Emmy encourages him as they try to step back and piece together a plan. Husband and wife figure that if there was ever an observable crash site, then they must have come here long before they did and hibernated till the time seemed right. It's a great theory, and they both try to take credit for it. Dan finds Dorian at a bar trying to drink that cancer away. He would have loved to die in 2051 by the hand of a white spike, rather than die by cancer. Events overtook him, literally. The news on the TV at the bar shows global-scale rioting. Dan begs Dorian to help them because they still have a chance at finishing this thing. But first, they would need the alien claw hanging around Dorian's neck. Next, they head over to Charlie's lab and he examines the claw. he figures out that it has sediments consistent with volcanic ash. But he's not an expert on volcanoes. But Dan knows somebody. It's one of his high school students who's an aspiring volcanologist. With his help, they're able to figure the origins of the ash on the alien claw and pinpoint the general area where the aliens first landed. Turns out they were preserved in ice and eventually thawed due to climate change. Actually, the white spikes had been here since circa 946 AD. Dan and the rest then try to convince the authorities about their findings, but are dismissed. So they decide to save the world on their own. They assemble a team which includes Dan's dad as a pilot and head to Russia under the radar. It's all ice as far as the horizon. They get on their ice mobiles and start to scan the landscapes for any anomalies. Soon they find something, because their electronic and scientific instruments start acting up due to some strange electromagnetism. There's definitely something under that ice. So they blow a hole into the ground and go inside. Well, they're right, because they found an alien ship. Dan tries to give a nice pep talk about how they ought to take the initiative on behalf of humanity, who's too distracted right now to help themselves. Dan's father and Charlie are to take positions outside so they can clean up any strays after. Now the hull of the spaceship is cut through and the rest of the team enter. There's a dead alien in the cockpit, but it ain't a white spike. Soon they figure out the ship must have accidentally crashed on Earth. And then they find the white spikes, and the answers come in. The white spikes were simply cattle to the real aliens. Go figure. They behaved like brutes and were not necessarily the advanced alien race we expected. So they start to neutralize the white spikes as they remain suspended in hibernation. But something starts to go wrong as the dying white spikes are screaming their last breath. In the process, this alerts other white spikes, who are yet to be jabbed by the poisonous toxin. Some start to escape, and worst of all, the Queen is one of the escapees. Dorian decides they have to blow up the ship as their last resort. He's basically sacrificing himself so that he can die according to his own terms. He's also doing it so Dan can get a second chance to be with his daughter. So Dan heads out and learns that the Queen White Spike's out there too. The ship is blown up in a big ball of flame, taking all the other white spikes with it, except one. And it's the job of Dan and his dad, with Charlie, to take care of it. Father and son are both military vets, so this ought to be a piece of cake, but no. That girl of a white spike does pack a punch. She fights hard, irrespective of tactical gunfire. Dan figures out that he has to slow it down first, before feeding it the very last vial of toxin that has her name on it. They stab it, and they're also able to blind it, and they even get rid of those spike-shooting tentacles, but not before Dan gets hit on the thighs with a spike. His father tries to make one last suicidal move. He's even dropping a last confession on Dan about how bad he treated him and his mom. Dan's not having any of it, and instead pulls his own last move. He jumps on the alien's back and is able to slice the throat, and then he just force feeds that alien toxin. And as anticipated, it melts the alien's brains, and it falls into a valley and goes. The event is all over the news, and an American senator is taking credit for everything. Dan gets home to his wife Emmy and their daughter Muri. He introduces Muri to her grandpa. Henceforth, he can only hope for a better future, one that doesn't involve him leaving his family and dying prematurely, or even one that doesn't include going to war with very hungry alien life forms. Thanks for hanging around. That was our recap of The Tomorrow War, directed by Chris McKay, written by Zach Dean. Featured in the movie are Chris Pratt, Yvonne Strahovski, J.K. Simmons, Betty Gilpin, Sam Richardson, Edwin Hodge, Jasmine Matthews, Ryan Kiera Armstrong, and Keith Bowers. If you guys enjoyed the video, leave a like and subscribe if you're not already in here. Make sure to hit that notification bell for more content. Thanks for watching. Till next time.